Today, we're diving into a GitHub repository that's getting a ton of buzz because it promises to solve a problem every developer faces: decision fatigue. But does it actually deliver? Let's find out.
You know the feeling, right? You've got this amazing idea for a new app. You're fired up, ready to code, and then you hit a wall. A giant wall of choices. Which front-end framework? What database? How am I going to handle auth?
I mean, just figuring out authentication. Are you going with Supabase, Firebase, or maybe Clerk? That alone can eat up an entire afternoon. And you multiply that by your UI kit, your hosting, your payment gateway, and suddenly you spent a whole day just researching without writing a single line of actual code. It is exhausting.
Well, that's exactly the pain point this GitHub repo, Indie Hacker Tools Plus, is trying to fix. The idea is simple. Instead of you having to wade through the entire internet, it gives you a pre-filtered, curated list of solid choices.
So what is it really? Well, at its heart, it's a guide. It's just a hand-picked collection of tools and tech stacks that are popular, proven, and specifically geared towards solo developers and small teams who want to move fast and keep costs down.
And this isn't just some random list someone threw together. It's got over 1,500 stars on GitHub, which tells you it's really hitting a nerve in the developer community. People are clearly finding this thing useful.
Okay, but here's a really important heads up. We need to be clear about what this is and what it isn't. This is not a tool you can install. There's no npx create indie app command here. Think of it more like a really well-organized cheat sheet. It's a reference guide, a starting point for your research, not a magic button that builds your app for you.
So what kinds of tools are actually in this thing? Let's pop the hood and take a quick look at the main categories to get a feel for how it's all laid out.
First up, you've got the absolute fundamentals. For your front end, it points you to the big players like Next.js, Vue, and Svelte. No surprises there, just solid choices. On the back end, you've got things like Nest.js and FastAPI for building your APIs. And of course, it covers the CSS frameworks you'd expect, like Tailwind. A really solid foundation.
As we go a little deeper into the stack, it covers all those back-end as a service providers that are super popular with indie hackers. You know, Supabase, Firebase, AppWrite. And it also gets into databases and ORMs, even including newer stuff like Terso for edge computing and Drizzle ORM.
And you can't have a modern tech list without talking about AI, right? So yeah, it's got a whole section for that. It lists out the key APIs like OpenAI and Hugging Face, plus helpful SDKs like the Vercel AI SDK, and of course, must-have tools like GitHub Copilot.
And finally, it covers the really critical stuff, how you get your project out into the world and, actually make money. So you'll find the usual suspects for payments, like Stripe, plus a breakdown of all the go-to platforms for deployment and hosting: Vercel, Netlify, Render, the whole crew.
Okay, so it's a pretty comprehensive list. But is it any good? Well, like with anything, there are some things it does really well and some things not so much. Let's get into a balanced look at the pros and cons. So where does this repo really shine? Well, first off, the notes are actually useful. They're opinionated. They don't just tell you what a tool is, they explain why you might want to use it. Second, the whole thing is structured in a really practical way that follows how you'd actually build an app. And best of all, it's community-driven, so it's always being updated.
But it's not perfect. There are definitely some gaps. For example, there's nothing on testing frameworks or CI/CD. It's also just a list of links. You're not going to find any code examples here. A bigger issue is that it's not always clear when a tool was last checked or what version was reviewed. And a heads up, the main navigation is in Chinese, which might be a hurdle for some.
All right, so taking all of that into account, what's the bottom line? Who is this actually for, and what's its real value?
I think this quote from an analysis on Dudarik.com just nails it. It says to think of it as a pre-filtered search result. Somebody else has already done the first pass for you, weeding out the noise and leaving you with a much shorter, more manageable list to look at.
So who is this for? I'd say this is for you if you just want to cut through the noise and get to a decision faster. It's perfect if you like having an opinionated shortlist to start from, and because of where it started, it's actually incredibly helpful if you happen to be building for Chinese markets and need to know about local payment or auth options.
Which brings us right back to our original question. Is this a cure for decision fatigue, or is it just another link for your bookmarks folder? I think the answer is, it's more like a powerful treatment, not a total cure. It's not going to make the final choice for you, but it absolutely gives you a clearer, shorter path to making that choice yourself. And when you're a busy indie hacker, that might be all you need.